Ladies and gentlemen, listen closely. Confidence is not something you get. It's something you build. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become bold. You decide to. The word dangerously confident doesn't mean arrogant. It means unshakable. It means you've reached a point where doubt no longer negotiates your destiny. See, most people are waiting for evidence to believe in themselves, but belief doesn't follow evidence. Evidence follows belief. You've got to decide who you are before you see the results, because confidence doesn't come from your circumstances, it comes from your conviction. Confidence is not something you find lying around in the world. It's something you forge through the fire of your own decisions. The truth is, confidence doesn't appear when you get the job, the car, or the applause. It appears when you start showing up as if you already deserve those things. You can't wait for someone else to validate you before you believe in yourself. Confidence is forged in the moments nobody sees, when you decide to keep going despite fear, rejection, or uncertainty. It's the decision to stand tall when everything around you is trying to convince you to sit down. Most people are waiting for proof before they believe, but the confident understand that belief is the proof. When you believe something long enough, your actions align with it, and the world eventually confirms what you've already known to be true. Confidence is built in the unseen hours. When everyone else is watching television, the confident are rehearsing, preparing, refining, and repeating. Every repetition adds another layer to their inner armor. They don't need external motivation because they're driven by internal conviction. They know that emotions follow motion. You don't wait to feel bold. You act boldly until your emotions catch up. Every small act of courage compounds to an unbreakable sense of certainty. Confidence grows in silence long before it's seen in public. It's built when you stay consistent after failure, when you stay humble after success, and when you continue to believe when no one else does. Identity comes before ability. If you don't know who you are, you'll never know what you're truly capable of. Most people chase skills, strategies, and shortcuts without first establishing their identity. But when you see yourself as confident, your behavior begins to mirror that belief. You don't act confident to become confident. You act in alignment with the identity you've already chosen. Every decision becomes an expression of who you believe yourself to be. The world doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your energy. The energy of someone who knows who they are is magnetic. People feel it before you speak, and they respect it before you prove it. When your identity is secure, comparison dies. You stop competing for attention and start commanding it naturally, not through arrogance, but through authenticity. Preparation eliminates intimidation. Confidence is not pretending to be ready. It's being prepared enough that you don't need to pretend. When you've done the work, you walk differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself with quiet power. Most fear comes from uncertainty, and most uncertainty comes from lack of preparation. When you study, practice, and commit yourself to mastery, the fear begins to fade. Confidence becomes a natural byproduct of preparation. The difference between the nervous and the confident is that the nervous wonder if they'll succeed, while the confident already know they've done the work to deserve success. True preparation gives you peace. You don't have to hype yourself up when you've already prepared yourself up. Faith destroys fear. Every time you take a step in faith, fear loses a little more control over your life. Fear asks, what if I fail? Faith responds, what if I fly? Confidence rooted in faith is unshakable because it's not dependent on circumstances. It's dependent on certainty. When you believe there's a greater plan working in your favor, you stop hesitating and start moving. Faith doesn't remove the storm or reminds you that you can walk through it. When you trust that your purpose is stronger than your problems, fear no longer has a seat at your table. That's what makes confidence dangerous. It's not blind ego, it's spiritual certainty. Your environment either feeds or fights your confidence. If you spend time with people who doubt themselves, you'll start doubting yourself too. Confidence is contagious, but so is insecurity. The people around you should be mirrors reflecting your greatness, not magnifiers of your fears. Surround yourself with those who challenge you to level up, who remind you of your strength, and who celebrate your growth instead of competing with it. The confident choose their company intentionally. They understand that atmosphere affects attitude, and attitude shapes outcomes. You can't be bold in a room full of timid minds. If you want to think bigger, get around people who think possibility, not limitation. Confidence grows when you serve, not when you show off. The loudest person in the room isn't always the most confident. They're often the most insecure. True confidence is quiet because it's rooted in purpose, not performance. When your focus shifts from proving yourself to improving others, your confidence multiplies. You stop worrying about how you look and start caring about how you can contribute. Self-consciousness disappears in the presence of service. The moment you take the spotlight off yourself and place it on the impact you're creating, fear loses its grip. Confidence is not about being seen. It's about seeing clearly the opportunity, the mission, the moment. That's when you become dangerously confident, the kind of person who moves with purpose, speaks with power, and acts with conviction no matter the opposition. Identity comes before ability, and that's where most people get it wrong. They're trying to build confidence by doing more, learning more, achieving more. But the truth is you can't outperform your own self-image. The way you see yourself sets the ceiling for what you can become. Before you can act confidently, you have to believe that confidence already belongs to you. Confidence is not something you chase, it's something you claim. The world responds to how you identify yourself, not how you wish to be identified. When you see yourself as small, you'll make small moves. When you see yourself as capable, bold, and worthy, your actions will begin to align with that picture. You move differently when you believe differently. You talk differently, walk differently, and decide differently. Identity shapes behavior. Every habit, every reaction, every result is an expression of how you perceive yourself. You can't keep calling yourself shy and expect to speak with power. You can't keep labeling yourself as average and expect extraordinary outcomes. Your language locks your identity, and your identity locks your potential. The moment you change your internal conversation, your external results begin to change. The confident don't speak from their limitations. They speak from their position. They've already decided who they are, and the world adjusts accordingly. Most people wait for permission to be bold, but the confident understand that permission is internal. You don't need anyone to agree with your greatness before you start expressing it. The mind always seeks alignment. If your identity and your behavior don't match, one of them will eventually change. That's why you can't sustain a confident act if you see yourself as insecure inside. Eventually, your self-image will pull you back to what you believe about yourself. Real transformation happens when you elevate your identity. Instead of asking, what should I do? Start asking, who must I become? Because once you know who you are, what you do flows naturally. Identity is the soil. Behavior is the fruit. If the fruit isn't growing, the issue isn't the action. It's the root belief beneath it. You'll never rise higher than your identity. A person who thinks like a beginner but calls themselves a leader won't sustain leadership for long because they'll always feel like an imposter. But when your identity matches your calling, confidence becomes effortless. You no longer need to act like you belong, you know you do. The most confident people in the world don't try to convince you. They simply express themselves. They're not looking for validation because they're rooted in conviction. And conviction comes from clarity about who you are, why you're here, and what you bring to the table. Confidence is the expression of identity combined with certainty. When you know who you are, you stop asking for instructions on how to be yourself. You stop looking at others as competition because you realize there's no competition for authenticity. There's only one version of you, and confidence is your willingness to express that version without apology. When you understand that truth, your actions carry authority. Your presence carries weight. You no longer walk into rooms trying to fit in. You walk in ready to make an impact. The world mirrors your self-perception. If you project uncertainty, it reflects doubt back to you. If you project assurance, it reflects respect. People treat you according to the energy you broadcast. Confidence doesn't start with external approval. It starts with internal agreement. When your mind, your words, and your actions agree about who you are, people can feel it. You don't even have to announce it. It's in your tone, your timing, your decisions. You can't fake that alignment. It's something people sense on a spiritual level. Too many people try to build confidence through appearance, dressing the part, talking the part, copying someone else's moves, but all that fades if it isn't built on identity. Real confidence isn't costume, it's character. You can't borrow someone else's belief system and expect it to fit you. Confidence becomes unshakable when it's rooted in your truth, your journey, your resilience. It's when you look at your flaws and still see value. It's when you acknowledge your weaknesses but choose to lead with your strengths. Identity doesn't mean perfection, it means alignment. You stop pretending to be what you think the world wants and start becoming what you were designed to be. When you live from your true identity, rejection doesn't sting as much because you're no longer trying to earn acceptance. When opportunities come, you recognize they're not rewards, they're confirmations. You stop second-guessing yourself because your confidence no longer depends on outcomes. Your belief is internal, and external results simply catch up over time. Identity gives you the stamina to keep going when results are slow because you know that what's inside of you will eventually manifest on the outside. The danger of misplaced identity is that you'll spend your life chasing validation from people who don't even understand your purpose. Confidence protects you from that. It keeps you grounded in who you are even when opinions shift. Trends change or failures appear. Once you know who you are, you stop auditioning for positions you were already qualified for. You stop shrinking in the presence of people who seem greater because you finally understand that greatness is not something you measure, it's something you embody. And when you embody it long enough, you no longer need to prove it, you simply live it. Preparation eliminates intimidation. And that's the truth most people overlook when they feel afraid. Fear doesn't come from the challenge itself. It comes from knowing deep down that you're not ready for it. When you prepare, fear begins to lose its voice. You don't need to convince yourself that you belong when you've already done the work. You don't need to hype yourself up when you've already put in the hours. Preparation builds the kind of confidence that doesn't need to shout because it's grounded in evidence. When you've invested time, effort, and focus into your craft, you walk differently. You walk like someone who has already paid the price to stand where they stand. The reason so many people hesitate is because they want the stage before they've mastered the practice. They want recognition before they've earned readiness. Preparation is the unseen work that gives you public power. Every time you study when others sleep, every time you rehearse when no one is watching, every time you correct your mistakes instead of making excuses, you're stacking confidence brick by brick. Preparation is proof that you take yourself seriously. It's not about perfection, it's about intention. When you prepare, you send a message to your own mind that you expect to win. Confidence doesn't come from pretending to be fearless. It comes from knowing that even if fear shows up, you're ready to respond. The prepared mind doesn't panic. It adapts, it pivots, it performs, because when you've put in the work, your instincts are sharp, your responses are faster, and your presence is stronger. People who prepare don't wait for opportunities to feel ready. They stay ready. They understand that preparation is the bridge between potential and performance. It's what turns intention into execution. You can't pray for success and then skip the process that builds it. Preparation also reveals discipline, and discipline is the backbone of confidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your trust in your own ability. When you break your own promises, you weaken that trust. Confidence isn't just about believing in your skills, it's about believing in your consistency. You can't feel confident in a version of yourself you don't respect. When you prepare, you earn your own respect. You look at yourself in the mirror and know that you did what you said you would do. That integrity breeds certainty, and certainty breeds calm. The unprepared are always intimidated by excellence. They look at someone performing with precision and mistake it for talent, but most of the time what they're witnessing is preparation. Behind every smooth delivery, there are countless hours of practice. Behind every confident decision, there are hundreds of small tests, failures, and adjustments. Preparation doesn't just sharpen your skills, it refines your character. It teaches you patience, endurance, and humility. It shows you that greatness is not a gift, it's a grind. Every repetition is a declaration that you refuse to be average. When you're prepared, pressure feels different. Instead of seeing it as a threat, you see it as a test. You welcome it because you know pressure only exposes what's already inside of you. The person who prepares welcomes the challenge because they know they've already rehearsed for this moment. The reason champions look calm under pressure is because they've lived that moment 1,000 times in their preparation. Their body, their mind, their spirit, they've all been trained to perform on command. The spotlight doesn't scare them because they've already seen it in their imagination. Preparation is the invisible confidence that travels with you. You don't need to announce it, it speaks for itself. People can sense when you're prepared because you radiate assurance. You don't stumble over your words or question your presence. You move with rhythm, precision, and poise. And that's not arrogance, that's alignment. You've aligned your actions with your ambitions. You've paid the price in private so you can profit in public. The unprepared try to fake confidence. The prepared simply display it. Preparation also protects you from intimidation by reminding you that success is predictable. If you've studied the process and put in the hours, then success is not a surprise. It's a scheduled event. That doesn't mean every detail will go your way, but it means you'll have the tools to navigate whatever comes. The prepared person doesn't crumble under setbacks. They adjust. They don't see obstacles as roadblocks. They see them as redirections. Preparation creates resilience. When life hits, you bend, but you don't break because you've already built the strength to recover. Too many people pray for confidence but avoid preparation. They want courage without commitment, results without rehearsal, but confidence without preparation is counterfeit. It might look good for a moment, but it can't hold up under pressure. Real confidence is quiet, steady, and earned through effort. Preparation isn't glamorous. It's early mornings, late nights, repetition, revision, and reflection. It's doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. That's where true confidence is born, in the moments no one sees, when you choose discipline over distraction. When you finally step into the arena, your preparation speaks louder than your voice ever could. It tells the world that you've already done the work, that you're not here to prove yourself. You're here to express yourself. You don't walk in hoping things go right. You walk in knowing that even if they don't, you're still equipped to win. Preparation doesn't just remove intimidation, it transforms it into motivation. You stop fearing the moment and start owning it because deep down, you know you've already earned your right to be there. Faith destroys fear, but most people never experience that truth because they give fear more attention than faith. Fear feeds on focus. Whatever you focus on expands, and when your attention is consumed by what might go wrong, your imagination becomes your greatest enemy instead of your greatest ally. Faith flips that script. Faith says, even if I don't see it yet, I still believe it's possible. Fear waits for evidence before moving forward. Faith moves first and lets the evidence catch up later. The difference between the fearful and the faithful is that one needs control to act and the other only needs conviction. When faith becomes your foundation, fear can knock on the door, but it can't move in. Fear speaks in limitations, but faith speaks in possibilities. Fear says, what if I fail? And faith responds, what if this is the very step that changes everything? Fear looks at your past to predict your future. Faith looks at your potential and pulls it forward. Most people don't lack opportunity. They lack belief. They hesitate not because they're incapable, but because fear has convinced them that failure is fatal. But faith knows that failure is feedback. It's not the end. It's the evidence that you're growing. Every person who's ever accomplished something significant had to silence the voice of fear long enough to hear the whisper of faith. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but faith is built for uncertainty. Faith doesn't need a map because it trusts the mission. It doesn't need to know how, it just needs to know why. When you walk in faith, you stop waiting for everything to make sense before you take action. You understand that clarity doesn't come before movement. It comes through movement. The faithful don't wait for perfect timing because they know faith is the perfect timing. Every step forward in faith weakens the power of fear. Fear wants you to freeze, to overthink, to delay. Faith wants you to move, to trust, to create. Fear will always disguise itself as wisdom. It will sound logical. It will sound protective, but its real purpose is to keep you from progress. Faith, on the other hand, doesn't ignore reality. It redefines it. Faith says, yes, the mountain is big, but my belief is bigger. Fear sees obstacles. Faith sees opportunities disguised as challenges. Fear sees the problem. Faith sees the process. The people who walk in confidence are not those who have eliminated fear. They're the ones who've trained themselves to listen to faith louder. Fear will always whisper, but faith knows how to roar. Faith builds confidence because it connects you to something beyond yourself. When you trust in a power greater than your own, your confidence stops depending on circumstances. You stop saying, I can't because, and start saying, I can because I'm called. Faith transforms your focus from self-doubt to divine purpose. It gives you a reason to act even when the outcome is uncertain. The faithful don't see risk as danger. They see it as destiny. They understand that the path of purpose is rarely comfortable, but always worth it. Fear demands comfort. Faith demands courage. Every time you choose courage, fear loses authority over your future. Fear operates on assumptions, but faith operates on assurance. Fear imagines the worst case scenario, while faith imagines the best possible outcome and moves toward it. The fearful person rehearses disaster in their mind until hesitation feels like safety. The faithful person rehearses victory until action feels natural. What you meditate on becomes your reality. If you meditate on fear, you'll manifest avoidance. If you meditate on faith, you'll manifest advancement. Confidence grows when you stop feeding fear with your imagination and start fueling faith with your expectation. Faith doesn't mean you never feel afraid. It means you refuse to obey fear. It's choosing to move forward while fear is still shouting. It's doing the work even when your hands are shaking. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something greater is worth facing it. When you act in faith, fear's power diminishes. It can't survive in the same space as conviction. The moment you trust your purpose more than your problems, fear starts to shrink. You don't need everything to go right. You just need to believe that no matter what goes wrong, you'll still come out right. Every person who's ever made an impact has had to walk through fear with faith as their guide. The difference between those who stop and those who succeed isn't that one group had less fear. It's that one group had more faith. Faith gives you the boldness to start, the endurance to continue, and the perspective to learn through pain. It reminds you that the struggle isn't proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're still fighting. Fear says, what if it all falls apart? Faith says, what if it all comes together better than I imagined? A faith creates dangerous confidence because it anchors you in something that can't be shaken. When your confidence is built on results, you'll crumble when results delay. When it's built on faith, you stay steady because your belief doesn't depend on what you see. It depends on what you know. Faith says, I'm not waiting to feel ready. I'm already equipped. It keeps you grounded when fear tries to take root. It's not blind optimism. It's focused certainty. It's understanding that what's in front of you can't stop what's within you. The moment you begin to act from faith instead of reacting from fear, you stop living for approval and start living from assignment. Your environment either feeds or fights your confidence. And most people underestimate just how much power their surroundings have over their mindset. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you stay planted in toxic soil, your growth will be limited. Confidence doesn't survive in an atmosphere of constant doubt. It needs an environment that supports your belief, not one that suffocates it. You can't expect to think bold thoughts while you're surrounded by small minds. Every conversation you engage in either deposits faith or drains it. And if you're not intentional about where you place yourself, you'll start shrinking just to fit in. People don't realize that atmosphere is energy, and energy is contagious. Spend enough time around negativity, and it starts to sound like wisdom. Spend enough time around fear, and it starts to feel like caution. Your environment will always try to shape you to its level. That's why you must be deliberate about who you allow to speak into your life. If you keep walking into rooms where your dreams are laughed at or your ideas are questioned, you'll start second guessing your own vision. Confidence cannot coexist with constant criticism. You can't build belief in yourself while surrounding yourself with people who specialize in doubt. You have to audit your environment the same way a builder checks the foundation before constructing a house. Who are you listening to? What are you consuming? What kind of conversations fill your day? Because those things are silently programming your level of belief. Your mind will adapt to whatever atmosphere it's most exposed to. If you keep hearing limitations, you'll start to believe in limits. If you keep hearing possibilities, you'll start to believe in potential. The difference between the confident and the uncertain isn't just mindset, it's environment. Confident people build around themselves a circle that challenges, stretches, and supports them. The truth is, you can't soar if you keep nesting where you're comfortable. Growth demands that you leave environments that no longer align with your purpose. Some people were part of your history, but they can't handle your destiny. They knew the version of you that played small, not the version that walks tall. When you start evolving, you'll notice your environment reacting. Some will celebrate your progress, others will resist it. But confidence means being willing to outgrow comfort. It means being okay with being misunderstood while you build what others can't yet see. You can't keep dimming your light just because it exposes someone else's shadow. Your environment also includes what you feed your mind when no one's around. The music you listen to, the content you consume, the voices you allow through your headphones. They're shaping your internal environment. If all you hear is chaos, criticism, or confusion, your confidence will feel unstable. You can't build a strong belief system on shaky input. Protect your mind like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Fill it with messages of purpose, strength, and vision. Feed it inspiration, not insecurity. Whatever you consume consistently becomes a conversation inside your head, and that inner conversation determines how boldly you show up in the world. The confident understand that environment isn't just physical, it's emotional and spiritual too. You can be in a beautiful place and still feel empty if the energy around you is wrong. You can be in a crowded room and still feel isolated if no one there understands your purpose. Confidence thrives in environments where authenticity is welcomed, where accountability is encouraged, and where growth is celebrated. You need people who see your potential even when you don't, who remind you of your power when you forget, and who challenge you when you get complacent. The right environment doesn't compete with you. It completes you. When your environment is aligned with your goals, confidence becomes effortless. You don't have to keep hyping yourself up because your surroundings already reinforce your belief. But when your environment is misaligned, it constantly drains you. You'll find yourself overthinking every move because the energy around you is resistance, not reinforcement. Protecting your confidence means protecting your space. That might mean saying no more often, spending more time in solitude, or connecting with people who are already where you want to be. Confidence is sustained by proximity to progress. When you're surrounded by people who are growing, striving, and believing, that energy becomes your new normal. Environment also determines expectation. When you're in rooms where excellence is standard, you stop questioning whether you can achieve it. You start assuming you will. When everyone around you is moving forward, standing still starts to feel uncomfortable. That's how confidence compounds. You absorb the standards of your surroundings, and soon enough, those standards become your habits. That's why it's better to be the least experienced person in a great environment than the most accomplished person in a stagnant one. The right room will stretch you, and stretching builds strength. Confidence doesn't grow in isolation, but it can die in the wrong crowd. You were never meant to blend in with people who are satisfied with mediocrity. You were meant to be in spaces that demand the best version of you. Every time you choose an environment that aligns with your potential, your confidence deepens. It reminds you that you belong among builders, dreamers, and doers, not complainers and doters. The company you keep will either confirm your greatness or convince you to forget it. Your future depends on which one you choose. Confidence grows when you serve, not when you show off. Because true confidence isn't about attention, it's about intention. The world teaches people to chase validation, to perform for approval, to collect applause as if that's proof of worth. But real confidence is quiet. It doesn't shout for recognition, it speaks through results. The person who serves with excellence doesn't need to announce their value, their impact reveals it. When your focus shifts from impressing people to improving people, something powerful happens. You stop performing and start transforming. You stop worrying about how you look and start concentrating on what you give. Service takes the spotlight off you and shines it on purpose. And that's where authentic confidence is born. Confidence rooted in service is different because it can't be shaken by opinions. When your mission is to make a difference, you stop living for approval. The crowd may cheer one day and criticize the next, but it doesn't move you because you're not fueled by applause. You're fueled by assignment. You're no longer trying to prove that you're enough. You already know that your contribution is valuable. The insecure chase validation because they need to be seen. The confident serve because they already see their purpose. Every act of service strengthens self-belief because it reminds you that you're capable of adding value to the world. When you focus on serving, fear begins to fade. You can't be self-conscious and purposeful at the same time. The moment you become obsessed with helping others, you forget to be nervous about how you're perceived. You stop asking, what will they think of me? And start asking, what can I give to them? That shift destroys insecurity. It gives you energy, direction, and authority. People can feel when you're serving from authenticity instead of ego. They respond to it differently because service carries a power that performance never will. Performance entertains, but service transforms. Service also builds consistency. When you serve, you show up whether you feel like it or not. You don't wait for the perfect mood or moment. You move because someone's breakthrough might depend on your obedience. That kind of consistency builds internal strength. You stop being tossed around by emotions because purpose steadies you. Confidence doesn't come from hype, it comes from habit. Every time you serve, even in small ways, you reinforce your belief that you have something valuable to offer. That repeated expression of value turns into conviction, and conviction becomes confidence. True service requires humility, and humility is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's knowing your power, but choosing to use it for the benefit of others. The confident don't need to boast about their abilities because they're too busy putting them to work. Humility keeps confidence grounded. It reminds you that your gifts aren't just for you, they're for the people connected to you. When your confidence becomes a tool of service instead of a trophy of pride, it multiplies. You give more, grow more, and in return, gain more certainty about who you are. The insecure need the stage to feel significant, but the confident can make an impact from any position. They understand that the goal isn't to be seen, but to be effective. Some of the most influential moments happen behind the scenes when no one is watching. When you choose to serve quietly and wholeheartedly, confidence born from service doesn't depend on recognition because the fulfillment is internal. It comes from knowing you showed up, gave your best, and made a difference. That's a level of peace no amount of praise can provide. Service also removes comparison. When you're focused on contribution, you don't have time to compete. You're too busy fulfilling your own role to measure someone else's. Comparison is the thief of confidence because it keeps you focused on what you're not instead of what you bring. Service redirects that energy toward purpose. It reminds you that your value isn't diminished by someone else's success. You're not running their race, you're completing your own assignment. Confidence built through service is steady because it's not dependent on position, platform, or popularity. It's anchored in purpose. When you serve, you discover your true power. You start to see that confidence is not about standing above people, it's about standing for something. The more you serve, the more capable you feel because you see the evidence of your own effectiveness. Every person you help, every problem you solve, every life you impact becomes a mirror reflecting your potential back to you. Service reveals strength that insecurity tries to hide. It teaches you that significance doesn't come from what you take, but from what you give. Confidence that comes from service carries authority because it's backed by authenticity. You don't have to fake energy when your purpose fuels you. You don't have to chase opportunities when your work creates them. The world naturally gravitates toward people who serve with passion because they radiate genuine conviction. That's why real leaders are always servants first. They lead not by dominance, but by devotion. Confidence that serves inspires trust, and trust amplifies influence. When you build your confidence through service, you stop worrying about whether you're ready because you're already in motion. You stop hesitating because you're too focused on impact to entertain insecurity. You stop seeking validation because your fulfillment comes from contribution. Confidence becomes a natural byproduct of doing what you were made to do. The more you serve, the more you see that your purpose was never about proving yourself. It was always about using yourself to make something better, stronger, and greater than before. Dangerous confidence is quiet. It doesn't shout to be seen. It moves with certainty. It's not arrogance. It's awareness of who you are, whose you are, and what you're capable of. So stop waiting for permission to believe in yourself. Stop auditioning for acceptance. You are already enough, already equipped, and already chosen. Walk into every room like you belong there, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you finally understand